You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowing like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the third part of What If Deku Enters Star vs. the Forces of Evil. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Nick Foolery on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Izuku sat in the preparation room, reading his hero analysis journal calmly and waiting for the next round of the sports festival to start. He grinned in anticipation. The tournament round was what this had all been leading up to, and now he had a chance to show how far he had come with One for All. Deku, come on. They're about to announce the matchups for the tournament round. Izuku looked up, and saw Star grinning at him from the doorway. He stood up, and put his journal in the small backpack that he had been carrying around, and walked outside to see the first matchups. The other students that had moved on from the cavalry battle were also filing out onto the field where they were announcing the matches. He made eye contact with Bakugou, who was glaring daggers at him. The green-headed teen immediately broke eye contact with the volatile blonde, and turned to Star. She noticed that Izuku looked nervous, and she rose an eyebrow. "What's up, Izuku?" He glanced back and saw that Bakugou was still staring at him from behind several students, and he leaned over to whisper to Star. "I have the feeling Kachan isn't too happy about losing to us in the cavalry battle." She glanced at him as well, and saw that his eyes were fixated on them, his red eyes boring holes into the back of their heads. She turned back to Izuku. "Nah, I think you're just imagining it. Hey, we're here." Izuku looked up, and saw Midnight standing on the stage as usual, with a huge leaderboard. She smiled, and directed the attention of the students to the board. "Here you will find the first 8 matchups for the tournament leg of the UA High Sports Festival. In 15 minutes the first fighters will take the ring. You may be dismissed to prepare." Izuku glanced up to the board and frowned. He was going first, but it was also against a name he didn't recognize. Tamura Oniton. What kind of name is that? That definitely isn't a traditional name. I wonder if it's a furigner. That would be interesting if dash. Deku, you're mumbling. Star grinned at Izuku's embarrassed face, thinking about how cute it was when he mumbled like that. She blushed a little at the thought, but kept her grin. It was perfectly fine for her to call her best friend cute, she thought to herself. Completely natural. Izuku sighed. I really thought I was finally getting rid of that habit. Guess it'll never really go away. The blonde princess swung her arm over Izuku's shoulder. Oh, don't worry about it too much, Deku. After all, it's just one of your special quirks. Izuku chuckled. Yeah, but those aren't the kind that you defeat villains with. Star shook her head. Of course you could defeat a villian like that. You could fill them with so much information, that their head would explode. Boom. The blonde princess gestured her hands as if her head were exploding, and they both shared a laugh. Izuku regained his composure, and grinned. Hey, I'd better go get ready before there's no more time left. She nodded, and he jogged off in the other direction, and Star headed to the booth, where she could watch the fight. Okay, you can do this. Just go out there, and do what you came to do. The hooded figure from Class 1B was taking deep breaths in the hallway, preparing himself for when he went out to battle. He had it all planned out. He'd beat that Midoriya kid, and then well, he'd do what he needed to do. He looked at his watch, and noticed that it was time to take to the ring. He made his way out, listening to Present Mike read out the information. He wasn't paying too much attention until his name was called. Tamura Oniton. Wait, what kind of name is that? The strange hooded boy from Class 1B, with an even stranger name. He winced a little, hearing the very common reaction to his name. He turned to Midoriya, who was standing in a battle-ready position on the other end of the ring. He seemed to be sizing him up. So, Tamura lowered himself into a similar position, and readied himself for the match to start. Midnight held her CRP into the air. 3, 2, 1. Go! As soon as the CRP came down, Izuku sprinted into action. He didn't seem to be using his quirk, but he was still above average speed. Tamura avoided him, and spun fire around his hands, using it to push Izuku away. He knew he was way stronger than him, at least with his quirk, so he couldn't let him get close. Good thing he couldn't attack at a long range, because his quirk was a strength enhancer. The smash! Izuku was about 20 feet from Tamura, and he let out a powerful flick, which sent a powerful gust of wind at his opponent. The fire immediately dispersed, and the wind whipped around the hooded figure. They struggled to keep on the ring with the wind, but they stabilized by shooting fire out the bottoms of their feet. Izuku raised an eyebrow, committing the move to his memory. He hopped forward, using one for all in short quick boosts as to not cause too much damage to his legs. He closed in on Tamura, who tried to stop him with a wall of fire. However, he flicked again, this time at a much closer range, and the fire shot away. He reached out, and grabbed the hooded boy by the jacket, keeping him from blowing away, but also not letting him jet away either. As the wind whipped, he noticed something poking out from under his hood. He frowned. He had something sticking out of his head that was sharp enough to rip through the hood. Tamura used this distraction as an advantage, and wrenched himself out of Izuku's grasp. Izuku grabbed a hold of his foot, and tried to DRG him back down. Ugh, hey! Let go! Izuku gripped tighter, letting one for all leak into his hold, being careful as to not squeeze too hard. Sorry, but I'd really prefer it if you were on the ground. The green-haired teen pulled him down, and punched the boy in the face, with a normal punch of course. Tamura groaned in pain, and cursed. "Damn it Tom, the one thing you needed to do, you couldn't do." Izuku gave him a strange look. "Wait, Tom." The hooded teen quickly hopped up, clutching his jaw. "Screw this man. I don't need this tournament. I'll just do it right here." He whipped of his hood, revealing 2 horns jutting from under his spiky hair. He had 3 eyes, all of which looked to have mascara on them. Izuku was befuddled, and stood there, unable to say anything. "Star Butterfly, I, Prince Tom Lucider of the Underworld, invite you to the BLD Moon Ball." There was silence in the arena, and Star stared at him from the Class 1A booth. "Tom. What are you doing here?" Tom looked hurt for a second, but regained his composure. "Look, I had it all planned out, but Greenie here ruined it." He seethed at Izuku for a second, before calming down. Star stared at him. "Not a chance Tom." He immediately became desperate, like this part was planned out too. "Starship please. I've changed. I'm taking anger management and everything. Just give me a chance." Izuku grabbed Tom by the shoulders, shadows covering his eyes, and began to push him out of the ring. As he did, he yelled up to Star. Izuku shoved him over the edge of the platform, and out of bounds. He looked up, with a confused look on his face. Everyone else seemed to echo this, as present mic hesitantly came over the loudspeaker. "And Izuku Midoriya wins." That was certainly strange. Aizawa scoffed from his chair. "Oh, I'm sure it'll get much stranger. Butterfly is something else entirely." Present Mike stared at the erasure head. Yeah. Anyways, the next match." For about the next hour, the tournament continued on relatively normal. Zero and Todoroki were the next to go, which had Todoroki freeze almost the entirety of the arena, just to immobilize Zero, which was a bit overkill. Star and Mina went next, but Star immediately knocked Mina out of bounds with a narwhal blast. The acidic teen didn't get upset though, instead opting to grin and tell Star she probably wouldn't have gotten too far anyway. After them was Momo and Tokoyami, in which Momo was barely knocked out of bounds without getting much of a chance to fight back against the unrelenting force of Tokoyami's dark shadow. Then came the fourth match-up, which was one Izuku was very curious to see. Uraraka vs Bakugou. He sat in the booth next to Star, who was ranting to Mina about how stupid Tom was. Izuku didn't know why, but to hear that come out of her mouth put a good feeling in his chest. It was honestly baffling, because Izuku didn't even know the guy. He shook it off though, and watched Bakugou and Uraraka face off in the arena. As soon as the fight started, Bakugou started his classic tactic of unrelenting explosions and utter destruction. However, every time that Uraraka got hit, she got back up, and continued to fight back, hurling the debris that was getting made with the wanton destruction of the ring, but unable to land much of a hit on the explosion user. At least one that really did anything. Izuku winced. He knew exactly how those explosions felt, and it was not a pleasant experience at all. After a particularly nasty hit, a lady in the crowd spoke up. "Ha! Some hero you are. Beating that poor girl senseless. Honestly, what do they teach you in those classes? How to beat up little girls?" Bakugou turned, holding up his hand for a moment towards Uraraka, telling her to stop for a second. She strangely complied, and judging by the look on her face, she didn't know why either. "I yearn for true gender equality. I have no patience for someone that claims they advocate for equal rights, yet complains about someone not being a man when it benefits them. Besides, I bet round face over there could easily kick your butt in a fight, so do you want to talk to me about going easy on someone? There are tons of female pro-heroes and even female villains that are strong and can kick butt. So how about you shut the hell up before I come up there and show you what they teach me in those classes, huh?" With that last sentence, Bakugou lit up his hand, and grinned savagely. The lady stood slack-jawed, and Present Mike sat in the announcing booth with a similarly shocked face. "What the heck is it today and all this surprise speeching?" Aizawa was dumbfounded. "No, I'm just as confused as you are on this one." The fight had started once again, going in a similar fashion as before. Soon though, the smoke and dust cleared for a second, and Uraraka and Bakugou stood off against each other. She was panting and scratched up, while Bakugou was just covered in dust and soot where it had been sticking to his body due to sweat. Uraraka grinned. "Now, take this. Release." Suddenly, a ton of rocks that had been in free float in the air that somehow no one noticed came crashing down, threatening to crush Bakugou. However, the blonde teen simply held his hand up, and blasted all the rocks into pebbles with a massive explosion. Uraraka stared in shock, and took a step back, as Bakugou lowered his hand and looked to his opponent, whose shocked look turned into one of determination. She took a shaky stand forward, and fell to her knees. She looked up, and her exhaustion was clearly written all over her face. Bakugou watched her closely, not moving from his spot. Uraraka growled. I can't stop now. I'm so close." Izuku watched from the bleachers with rapt attention, and Star had even pried herself from her conversation to closely watch the battle. Uraraka continued to crawl forward, before finally she collapsed onto the ground. Present Mike yelled over the loudspeaker. "And Uraraka is down for the count. Katsuki Bakugou wins." The first aide quickly rushed out, and got Ochiko, and brought her off the ring. Bakugou's gaze lingered on her for a moment, before he walked off the ring in the opposite direction. Star turned to Izuku. "Deku, that was wild. Ochiko did so good." The green-haired teen nodded. "I thought she had Kachan for sure. He saw through her tricks though." The blonde princess clenched her fist. "I hope I get to face him in the next round, I'm gonna kick his butt." Izuku chuckled at Star's determination, and turned back to the arena, where the next match was about to start. Kirishima and one of the students from Class 1 beat Tetsu according to Present Mike and prepared for battle. Izuku watched sheepishly as the battle raged on. By that, I mean that they endlessly exchanged punches, as their fighting styles and quirks were virtually the same. Star watched in amazement. It's like banging two rocks together until one breaks. I love doing that. Izuku gave the princess a weird look, not entirely sure if she was serious or not. She's probably serious, he thought to himself. They eventually had to call off the battle for time restraint reasons, as it was obvious that the fight was going nowhere. So the two were escorted off the ring, disappointed that they couldn't see who was better than who. Izuku leaned back in his chair, and turned to Star. I wonder if Uraraka is alright. Star turned to him. I'm sure she's fine. Probably getting patched up by Recovery Girl. Uraraka sighed, and laid back on the cot she was sitting in. She closed her eyes, and thought back to her fight with Bakugou, and just how close she had gotten to beating him. Then, he had to go and blow up her whole plan. Literally. She groaned, and covered her eyes. She'd have to call her parents later to see if they saw the fight, and apologize for doing so badly. Then, the door opened up, and Uraraka sat up to see who it was, and was shocked to see Katsuki Bakugou standing there, looking at her with a monotone expression. She tried to keep her shock off her face. Hey, Bakugou. Shut it, round face. She immediately shut her lips tightly, wondering if he was mad at her or something, and not wanting to anger him more if so. He pulled his hand out of his pocket, and handed her a slip of paper. She looked at him strangely for a minute before he growled at her. Don't just look at it. The gravity girl quickly snatched up the paper and held it in her hand. Bakugou turned away, and before he left he stopped. If you ever want to train together or something. There's a great gym near my apartment. And with that, he left the room, shutting the door quickly behind him. Uraraka opened her hand and glanced down at the paper, and her face erupted into a red blush when she saw that it was Bakugou's phone number. She looked at it, clearly embarrassed. Was he hitting on me? Izuku chuckled as the last fight of the first round finished up, with Meihatsum of the support classes walked off the ring in forfeit, leaving poor Ida behind, after having been a demo for her equipment for the better part of half an hour. Midnight grabbed a microphone, and stood on the arena. The second round will start in about 30 minutes. Fighters, go into your rooms to prepare, and in 15 minutes, the next lineup will be announced. Izuku and Star both stood up, talking about the fights on the way to the Class 1A room. It was so funny to see Denki get his butt handed to him by that grass-haired girl. Izuku chuckled as Star talked about the short fight between Kaminari and Shiozaki. That is what Kaminari gets for underestimating his opponent though. They rounded the corner of the hall, and saw Uraraka with tears rolling down her face. They both stopped, and looked at the rosy-cheeked girl with concern. Hey, Achiko, you alright? Star asked softly. She nodded, and wiped her tears away. Yeah, just got off the phone with my folks. How'd the rest of the fights go? Izuku listened as Star explained the rest of the fights, and gripped his hands tightly. Round 2 was in about 25 minutes, and he could be fighting anyone from Shiozaki to Todoroki. He knew whoever it was though, he had to show how far he'd come with one for all. It was his goal. When Izuku arrived back at the stand that Class 1A was sitting at, the new matchups were being announced. Star bounded over to him. Hey, Deku. Do you know who Tokoyami is? Me and him are supposed to be fighting first, and I want to know who I'm up against. Izuku gave Star a deadpanned look, and then looked directly behind Star, where Tokoyami was standing, with his eyes closed. Such is the life of one who blends with the shadows. The green-haired teen sighed, and shook his head. He's right there. Star looked back, and stared directly at him. The bird guy. Tokoyami kept his same expression, but Izuku could have swore that he saw a single tear roll down the bird teen's feathers. The green-haired teen tore his focus away from Star's wild antics, and looked up towards the board. First up was Star versus Tokoyami, just like she said. Then was Bakugou and Kirishima, which was certainly an interesting matchup. Third, he was up, going against Todoroki. He looked over to the duochromatic teen, who was looking at the board with mild contempt, and frowned. He took our Zero with one overkill attack, so Izuku knew that it would be a difficult fight. Finally, the grass girl from 1B, Shiozaki he thinks her name was going against Ida. Speaking of the blue-haired teen, he approached Izuku from the seats. Ah, Midoriya. I see that you are looking at the matchups. Surely you have already analyzed and determined the outcomes for each one. Such dedication. What do you think of my matchup? Izuku chuckled. Well, I haven't actually seen Dash. Wait. No, don't tell me anything. I can't receive help from a fellow contestant. I have to do this on my own. Thank you for your insightful words, Midoriya. I must be off. The blue-haired teen sprinted away, leaving Izuku standing there alone. I didn't even get to say anything. Tenya was right though, he had been thinking about the matchups. Specifically, a strategy for going up against Todoroki. The half-and-half quirk user was no pushover, and Izuku knew that the fight with him would be the hardest he's had to face so far. He clenched his fist, letting one for all surge through his fingertips for a second. He had to win this round, and prove himself worthy for All Might's power. Midoriya. Izuku jumped, and spun around, seeing Todoroki looking at him with his usual deadpan. I need to speak with you. Please come with me for a moment. Star bounced up and down as she ran down the stairs, and headed towards the battle arena. However, before she arrived, she saw All Might talking to some dude that had literal fire sprouting out of his face like a beard. Whoa, she breathed out saliently, as though the firehead man looked at All Might with a glare. He has been specifically created to surpass you. And he will do just that. He will do everything that I have failed to do, and surpass you. In my name. He turned around, and went up the stairs, leaving All Might alone. Star watched him pass, and looked away when he looked back at her, an intense expression written all over his face. Ah, Miss Butterfly. You must be going to your match. Go on now, you don't want to be late. She grinned. Oh yeah. Thanks All Might. The blonde-haired princess bounced out to the arena, hearing Present Mike call her out. She's a magical princess from another dimension. You know her, we all love her. Star Butterfly. She hopped onto the field, and watched as Tokoyami stepped out onto the field as well. He's lurking in the shadows, and his quirk, Dark Shadow, is nothing to bat an eye at. Look out for Fumikage Tokoyami. The two got into a battle position, and Present Mike counted them off. Ready? Go. Immediately, Star went on the offensive, pulling out her wand. Rainbow Super Fist. A giant rainbow-colored hand shot out of her wand, and directly towards the bird-headed teen. Dark Shadow emerged, and blocked the attack, but hissed when it hit him. That ain't just rainbow-colored, that's actual rainbow. Man, that stuff smarts. Tokoyami frowned. So she can shoot beams of pure light at us. Star held her wand out again. Narwhal Blast. Her signature attack burst out of her wand, and the tiny whales assaulted Tokoyami. He frowned, and Dark Shadow groaned. How are we supposed to beat her? Her magic is crazy. Tokoyami lowered himself to the ground. We don't have to outmatch her. We just have to outsmart her. He launched forward, using Dark Shadow as a propelling agent, and going faster. Star moved in time, and aimed her wand. Cotton Candy Blast. The sticky substance shot from the end of the wand, but Tokoyami had already moved out of the way, and was back on the offensive. He landed a solid hit on Star, but she hardly seemed fazed, besides a grunt of pain, which surprised Tokoyami, as she immediately recovered, and pointed her wand at him. Cupcake Blast. The confectionery treat hit him, and nearly knocked him out of the ring, but Dark Shadow saved him. It seems I have severely underestimated her. We need to get the wand away from her. He took a step forward, but was immediately hit by another rainbow, that knocked him out of the ring. Dazed, he looked up towards Star, who was grinning from ear to ear. Next time, do your strategizing in your head. Tokoyami hung his head. I see. You are truly a worthy opponent. You will go on, and dash. He looked up, but he noticed that Star was already gone. And the winner is Star Butterfly. Where'd she go? Izuku stood across the hall from Todoroki, who had just finished telling him about how he got his scar, and his home life. The green-haired teen frowned. He knew that endeavor had been intense, but what he put Todoroki through was borderline abuse. Todoroki looked Izuku directly in the eyes, his usual deadpan replaced with a look of determination, and cold anger. That is why I will defeat you in this round. I have to prove to my old man that I can win without using this cursed quirk. Izuku frowned, but shook his head, and grinned. Well, I won't go easy on you. Todoroki turned away, and began walking to the prep room. He stopped for a moment, and looked back towards Izuku. You'd better not. With those words, he walked away, leaving the green-haired teen alone in the hallway. Before he had time to think about what was said, a voice called out to him. Deku. He looked behind him, and saw a Star running towards him, grinning. I won my match. It was super easy too. That. Bird Dude kept talking to himself in the middle of the fight. Izuku chuckled as Star recounted the match to him, but at the back of his mind he thought about the story that Todoroki had told him. A frown began to overtake his face, and Star noticed. Hey, Deku. What's up? He snapped out of his thoughts, and grinned. Oh, it's nothing. Just thinking about my match. Hey, let's go watch Kachan's and Kirishima's match. Star agreed, and the two went up to the stands together. Katsuku Bakugou was starting to get pissed off. Okay, maybe saying, starting, is a bit of a lie. He pretty much stayed exclusively pissed off. How could he not with all these extras always being so DMN stupid? Speaking of extras, this spiky-haired idiot, who had yet to lay a scratch on him, and vice versa was still going strong. Katsuki growled. Grr, just die already. He let out a nasty explosion against him, the red head blocking it with his literally rock-hard arms again, and grinned. Why don't you do something different then? Katsuki growled Aegean. This guy was seriously taunting him. He'd make shitty hair here wish he was never born. I'll make you wish you were never even born, shitty hair. Kirishima grinned. You're using that one, huh? Get some better material, man. That's super unoriginal, and creativity is super manly. Katsuki yelled out in anger, finally snapping, and unleashed a volley of explosions, unrelenting in his onslaught. When he was finished, Kirishima smirked. What, is that all you got? Katsuki Bakugou wins. He looked confused. What the dash? He looked down at his feet, and saw that he was a step out of bounds. He frowned. Oh. Well, I guess next time I'll pay better attention. He stuck his hand out to shake Katsuki's, but the blonde just stared at him like he was an idiot. He coughed, and brought his hand back. Yeah. Good match, I guess. He quickly hurried away, trying to avoid the awkward situation. Izuku wasn't surprised in the slightest with the outcome of the match between the Bakugou and Kirishima. While Kirishima had the best defense, he couldn't keep up with Kachan's relentless attacks. Maybe if there hadn't been an out of bounds, Kirishima could outlast Kachan, but... Deku, you're mumbling. And don't you need to start getting ready for your match? He put a hand over his mouth, blushing when his Star called him out. Yeah. Let me go do that now. He hurried away, and Star sighed. He's cute, ain't he? Star grinned, thinking about Izuku's many cute quirks. Yeah, definitely. She then realized what she just agreed to. She turned to a deviously grinning Mina, and frowned. In a totally platonic friendly way. There was a red blush across her face, and Mina laughed. Yeah, totally. Todoroki was looking at his hands, thinking about his other half. His fight with Izuku was about to begin, and he knew that it was going to be more difficult than the previous round. Still, he had to win without using his father's quirk. He heard Present Mike begin to speak, taking it as the K to walk onto the arena. On the left, the half-hot, half-cold fighter, Shototodoroki. He walked onto the fighting arena, keeping his indifferent expression. And on the right, the jealous izukumidoriya. He heard Izuku yell. What do you mean jealous? What are you talking about? His question went unanswered, as Present Mike called for the fight to begin. Todoroki stood across from Izuku, and got into a battle-ready position. I'm going to end this quickly. Izuku grinned, but didn't say anything. The half-and-half user sent a wall of ice towards the green-haired teen, but the ice was blown away with a flick of Izuku's fingers. Smash! The wind whipped through Shoto's hair, and the son of Endeavor could see Izuku wince from the pain in his finger. So he could destroy his ice. Then he just had to outlast him. Another wall of ice, and another flick, and Izuku's finger was a little worse for wear. The green-haired teen growled in pain. So about 2 flicks per finger is the extent I want to take this. Maybe dodging would do better. So when the next wall came, Izuku hopped to the side using One for All, and sent another powerful gust of wind towards Todoroki, in the hopes that he would fly out of bounds. Unfortunately, his reaction timing is pretty good, and he was able to keep himself in the ring with another wall of ice. Izuku noticed that his breath was visible, and he had patches of ice forming on his body. So, he's having trouble regulating his internal temperature. Probably wouldn't be a problem if he was using his fire. Another wall of ice, and another smash, and Izuku yelled out to Todoroki. Why are you holding back? Todoroki froze. I told you already. Izuku frowned, his eyes narrowing at the half-and-half quirk user. It's not his quirk, Todoroki. You can't pick your lot in life, you're only responsible for how you use it. He growled, and began to charge One for All in his right arm. So stop holding back, and come at me with your all. Izuku knew that everyone in the stands would be looking at him like he was insane for what he was doing, but All Might said it himself. It's a hero's job to meddle in places they don't belong. Plus, he has to prove himself as well, and all this holding back business doesn't prove anything. Todoroki's look of shock slowly became a smile. I am sorry, but you brought this onto yourself. Flames shot to life, and Shoto's body temperature regulated. Izuku charged forward, and Shoto sent forward a blast of ice. Detroit Smoz. The wall of ice fell apart, and the destruction went back to Todoroki, who was thrown back, only barely saving himself from going over the edge. He looked forward, and there was a fist coming straight towards him. He tried to block in time with ice, but the wind from the attack knocked him out of the ring, and onto the grass below. Izukumidoriya wins. The crowd cheered, and Todoroki looked at his own condition. Surprisingly, he didn't have a single scratch on him. He chuckled. So Midoriya had been conscious about his output this whole time. Speaking of condition. Izuku winced as pain spread through his whole body. One of his fingers were definitely shattered, and his arm wasn't in much better shape. He groaned. Man, and I still have an entire round left. He looked around at the destruction, and blushed at the damage Todoroki and his match caused. Ah, I better head to the nurse. Todoroki had already gotten up, and looked fine. He sent a meaningful look over to Izuku, who simply nodded, and made his way towards Recovery Girl's office. When he arrived, the short old woman gave him a look that made him feel stupid, and he rubbed the back of his neck. Ah, I won. She sighed, and healed him with her quirk. He immediately felt drained. Just take a moment to rest. Oh, and the girl is here. Deku, that was awesome. Star popped out from the other side of the door. She began to gush over his fight, and he grinned. Thanks, Star. I appreciate it. She grinned back. No problem, I always love seeing a good fight. Oh, I wonder who's gonna fight in the next round. He chuckled, and thought about it for a moment. She was right. It could be anyone from Star herself to Kachan that he could be fighting. He clenched his fists. Whoever it was, he knew that he could win. Star stopped talking when Ida walked in, with the Shiozaki girl. Ida seemed fine, but the plant girl was a little worse for wear. It was nice of Ida to bring her here. Midoriya. Butterfly. The next round matchups will be announced soon. If you can, please be outside to see them. They nodded, and Izuku made the executive decision to go ahead and go, not forgetting to grab one of the energy replenishing suckers on the way out. The two made their way towards the balcony where 1A was sitting, and watched the next round matchups. Izuku saw his name instantly. He would be fighting Star. The blonde princess grinned. Oh man, this is gonna be great. We've never fought before, Deku, this is gonna be so fun. Meet you out there, Greenie. She immediately speeded down to the arena. He looked at it one more time, and saw that Ida was fighting Kachan, and he winced. He had a feeling that it would be an explosive match to say the least. Izuku sighed, and began getting ready for the fight. To say Star was excited to battle Izuku would be an understatement. She was absolutely ecstatic. Fighting was one of her favorite things to do, and she got to do it with one of her favorite people as well. She blushed a little at the thought. Maybe Mina was onto something. Before the thought could go any further, her mirror phone began to ring. She answered it, surprised to see the worried face of her mother. Star. Dear, is this a good time? Star smiled sheepishly. Actually, I'm about to go into the arena and fight Deku. Queen Moon nodded. Very well then. Well dearie, I will let you prepare. Just call me back as soon as you can. The blonde princess grinned. Of course, Mom. Love you, but bye. She hung up, and ran out on the arena as Present Mike called her out. You like her, you love her. The magical star butterfly. The crowd cheered for her, and she waved for them. And her opponent, who took out the icy shototodoroki last round, is the powerful Izuku Midoriya. Izuku confidently strode onto the ring, and readied himself for the battle. Begin. As soon as the words left Present Mick's mouth, Star began with her classic strategy of blast it until it's down for the count. Narwhal blast. Unfortunately for her, Izuku was well versed in her fighting style, and her spells. He moved through the onslaught of aquatic animals with grace and tact, and used a flick to blow the rest away. He knew that he had to get the wand away from her, and that it was his only chance to win. He channeled One for All into his feet, and began to hop around at blinding speeds. Whoa! She pointed her wand at him, and yelled. Super slow spell. The beam went after him, but it missed. Something grabbed her wand suddenly, and tore it from her grasp. Izuku grinned, and put the wand way in his pocket, where it fit surprisingly well. Star wasn't done yet though. She threw a punch, which Izuku barely blocked, and began to use her skills fighting that she acquired before she even got her wand. Izuku jumped back, and swung his feet under her legs, and as she went down, he grabbed her by the arms. Eep! He was blushing profusely, and yelled out an apology. I am so sorry, Star. He spun her around in a huge circle, and threw her towards out of bounds. She went to cast a spell, but then she remembered that Izuku had taken it. Darn it. She hit the grass with a quiet, and Present Mike announced the winner. And Izuku Midoriya is the winner again. Izuku sighed, and felt ready to collapse. He needed something to drink. He and Star met up in the preparation room, and he had an apple juice in his hands. Star grinned, fiddling with her wand. It was fun, but I wish you wouldn't have taken my wand. Izuku chuckled. Yeah, well it was the best thing I had in mind. Sorry. She waved her hand dismissively. Don't worry about it. Besides, you did better than the bird guy. They shared a laugh, and Izuku began to think about Kachan's and Ida's match. Do you think that Ida can beat Explodey Pants? Izuku sighed. I am almost 100% certain that Kachan will win. Star frowned slightly. That meant that Izuku was about to have to face his childhood bully again, this time in an actual battle arena. She imagined that he wasn't looking forwards to it. She was exactly correct. Izuku was dreading this next match with his ex-childhood best friend. There was a short break in between rounds, but he still felt exhausted from his other matches. He was only paying half attention to present Mike's opening, and he stumbled onto the field, suddenly feeling very drowsy. Conversely, Katsuki Bakugou was ready to PND that DMN nerd Deku into the ground. So when they got ready, and the fight began, he already had his first move planned out. Unfortunately, he wouldn't get to use it. Izuku collapsed immediately, groaning internally as he did. I'm seriously running out of steam now. He was out cold immediately. Fighting Todoroki and getting healed afterwards really took it out of him. Bakugou was pissed when that shitty announcer said that he won. No way, I refuse. That shitty nerd didn't even give me a chance to kill him. Needless to say, they had to DRG both parties off of the arena. The crowd murmured at the slightly anticlimactic ending to the festival, but their excitement came back when they heard that All Might would be presenting awards. On a large step thing that showed the participants' rank, stood Star Butterfly at third, who was bouncing excitedly as All Might put her medal around her neck. Izuku was at second, looking like he just woke up. As All Might handed him his medal, and pulled him in for a hug. You did outstanding today, young Midoriya. Precisely what I expect from you. Izuku grinned and nodded, and tears threatened to spill, but he held them in. Finally, Katsuki Bakugou, who was wearing a straight jacket and a muzzle, was cursing profusely at everyone involved with the entire festival. Okay, they're Hannibal. He wasn't even able to put the medal around the explosive teen's neck, and eventually gave up, putting it at his feet instead. All Might turned to address the crowd. Everyone watching today. Thank you for all your support. Remember to give it your all. Plus Ultra. The crowd responded with a resounding, Plus Ultra. Izuku looked at his medal and grinned. So maybe he did alright anyway. Izuku scrolled down his Hero News app on his phone, aimlessly browsing the news of up-and-coming heroes that have made their recent debuts. He heard clacking coming down the hall, and looked up for a moment, seeing Star in a dress, with her hair done, making her way to the door. Oh, hey Star. Hey Deku. He turned back to his phone, before looking back. Why are you all dressed up? Star gave him a confused look. I'm going to the BLD Moon Ball with Tom. Did I not say anything? The green-haired inheritor shook his head. No. Didn't you tell him no? She nodded. Well yeah, but he approached me afterwards, and begged me for another chance. I agreed, so he would leave me alone. Izuku frowned. His stomach twirled apprehensively, a strange feeling taking hold of him. When? The princess thought for a moment, and then snapped. It was when you were talking with All Might after the tournament, I think. When he pulled you into Teacher's Lounge. The green-haired teen remembered, and nodded. Oh, do you want me to come with or anything? Star blushed a little, before shaking her head. No, you can stay here. I don't think that you'd really enjoy this kind of event. And I don't know if bringing you would set Tom off. Izuku felt a little crestfallen at this. Oh, okay then. I'll just, stay here then. Star nodded. Don't worry, I'll be back later tonight. She walked out the door, and Izuku watched as she rang a little bell, and a fiery elevator. came up, and took her down with it. The bell she rang sat on the hand rail outside of their apartment, and he gently picked it up, and brought it inside. He sat back down on the couch, and began to scroll through his phone again. However, that uneasiness he felt earlier hadn't gone away yet. Don't worry Izuku, she's just going to some ball with her demon ex-boyfriend, and she'll be back later. One part of him rationalized. But what if she gets hurt, or something, and I'm not there to help? The other part argued. This is Star we're talking about, she can handle herself just fine. But what if there's something there that dash? Kid, honestly, just go after her. You clearly aren't comfortable with her going on her own. Izuku let out a yell of surprise and looked up to see a woman standing beside him. She had long black hair, and was wearing a hero costume that consisted of a black jumpsuit, a white cape, and big yellow gloves and boots. Who are you? She frowned a little. You mean Toshinori hasn't told you yet? Well, it doesn't matter. The name's Nana. Nana Shimura. I'm the 7th holder of One for All. Izuku was at an absolute loss for words. Wait, doesn't that mean? She grinned and nodded. Yeah, the spirits of the other past holders are ALS-. Ghost. There was a short PRD of silence, and Nana stared at the green-haired teen. Izuku shut his mouth, and progressively got redder. Ah, yeah. That's what I meant. The black-haired hero gave him a skeptical look, before continuing. Anyway, the other 6 holders are also a part of the quirk. Basically, parts of our souls linger with the quirk when it's passed down, and when we die, we can communicate with the new holders. Izuku nodded. Oh, so kinda like the Force ghosts from Star Wars. Nana looked at him strangely. What Star Wars? The green-haired teen shook his head. Not important right now. Anyway, so you can just come by any time to see what's going on. She nodded. So you can talk to All Might too. She frowned a little. Yeah, kinda. We can sort of halfway appear in his dreams. One for All is actually reacting differently to you than it did to him. Izuku gave her a questioning look. Different? She sat down on the coffee table in front of him. Yeah, basically, we can interact a lot more with you than we could with Toshi, and way more than the previous users could with me. We aren't sure why, but it may be due to a latent quirk, or something about your spirit is different. The green-haired teen's head spun with all the questions he had, but before he could ask them, Nana held up her hand. Trust me kid, we're just as clueless as you about this. Besides, we can figure this out later, you still have to go with Star. Izuku snapped out of his daze, and pushed all of his questions to the back of his head. You're right. I'll leave right away. He went to leave, but was grabbed by Nana before he could make his way out of the door. Whoa, kiddo. Not dressed like that you aren't. Izuku looked down to his t-shirt, and his pair of gym shorts that he had been wearing. What's wrong with what I'm wearing? The former hero sighed, and shook her head. Izuku, you are about to go to a ball, dressed like you're going to work out. A ball, as in a dance. What do you wear to a dance? Izuku had a look of realization on his face, and he hit his fist into his palm. My hero costume. A suit. With a tie maybe. The green-haired teen blushed. Ah. Yeah, that definitely makes more sense. Where am I going to get a suit though? He then suddenly had a thought. He stepped out of the living room, and into the hallway leading to the bedrooms. Mom. Do we have any of Dad's old suits? I need to borrow one for a little while. There was a little bit of noise, before his mother came stumbling out of her bedroom. A suit? Izuku, you wouldn't be happening to go to a dance, would you? And where's Star? Has she already left? Is she your date? Is she someone else's? Izuku, you let someone else take that young lady to a dance. Izuku flushed red. He knows where he got that from then. Not exactly. His mom backed down from the questioning, and gave him a questioning look, before simply shrugging. Yes, the last time he went to the States, he left a handful of suits and ties that he said you might need in the next few years. Here, I think I know just the one. She scrambled back into the room, and Izuku looked back to Nana, who simply gave him a thumbs up, and a big grin. Star was beginning to think she should have just stayed home. She didn't mind the demonic traditions, and while she felt a little bad that the ball had been heavily toned down for her appearance, it wasn't her fault that Tom wanted to ease her into it. She remembered her middle school years, and she could handle a lot more than some unicorn BLD. In fact, that's where the root of her ire lay. Tom had pretty much been coddling her for the whole ball, and frankly seemed on the verge of snapping, with all the things that were seemingly going south. Maybe she should have just avoided him after he and Deku fought. Speaking of which, she had the sinking suspicion that he wouldn't stay home like she had suggested to him. Although, part of her wished he was here. She quickly pushed that thought away, when Tom returned with 2 glasses of some kind of punch-type deal. She grabbed hers, and took a sip. Cherry. Truly the most demonic of flavors. So what's the deal with this whole BLD moon thing anyway? Tom gave her a strange look. You don't know. Star shrugged. Not really one to hit the history books, dude. The demon nodded. I guess that's fair. The BLD moon ball happens once every 667 years, where the residents of the underworld gather in order for them and a beloved to dance under the light of the BLD moon, and allow their souls to be bonded for all of eternity. The blonde princess raised an eyebrow. And I suppose you wanted to dance with me under the light of the BLD moon? Tom sputtered for a second, nearly choking on his drink before shaking his head. Of course not. I just wanted to spend time with you, that's all. Show you that I've changed, you know. Star sighed, and set her drink down. Look, Tom Dash. Suddenly, the lights shut off, and the roof began to open up. Tom's eyes sparkled. Oh, it's about to start. Once the music was about to start, though, Tom flinched, and glared at the direction of the pianist. Actually, that's the wrong song. I'll be right back. Wait for me on the dance floor, okay? Star watched him run off, and sighed. Clearly lying earlier, and he definitely wanted to get her under the light of that moon. Not that it would matter anyway, it wasn't like the thing actually bonded souls together or anything like that. She found herself wandering onto the dance floor, and she looked around at the people, as the light slowly illuminated the room in a dull red glow. As she glanced around, she spotted a head of messy hair, that looked awfully familiar. She squinted. Deku? When Izuku finally got his mom to calm down, and finally got out of Nana Shimura's grasp, he rang the bell for the demon coach to come bring him down. The demon rose an eyebrow. Kid, normally I wouldn't let you down, as you aren't invited, but I really don't get paid enough to do this. Hop in. He quickly figured out that when Star said he wouldn't enjoy this event, she meant that it took place in literal hell, and seemed to have all of its inhabitants as attendants. He made his way around the hordes of demons, all seemingly dressed in ball-going attire. He definitely would have stood out even more if he wore what he was planning on wearing. Point for Nana. He looked around for Star, not seeing her anywhere, before the room went completely dark. He sighed. If he thought it was hard looking for a blonde-haired teenage girl in a room full of demons, he knew that it'd be impossible now. The roof began to open up, and he noticed that there was a red light basking the room. He gulped, and prayed that whatever was going on wasn't some creepy soul-stealing ritual or anything. He used the red glow to look around the room, and when he noticed the light blonde that was the top of her head, he nearly made a mad dash for her. She seemingly noticed that he was coming forward, and she squinted to get a better look. He pushed through the last couple of demons, and she gave him a questioning look. Deku? He grinned sheepishly. Hey Star. She put her hand on her peach. So, why'd you come? Izuku bit his lip, and rubbed his neck. To be honest, I'm not really completely sure. I guess I wasn't completely comfortable with you going it alone. She sighed, and smiled, before pulling Izuku into a small hug. Well, while I don't like being coddled, this was getting kind of boring anyway. Wanna get out of here? Izuku went to nod, and say something, but before he could, there was a sudden bright red spotlight that shone down on him and Star. You, Star. What's going on? There were people staring at them, and soft music playing in the room. She grabbed Izuku in a dancing position, and he quickly went red. Not that you could tell under the light anyway, but still. Star. She put her finger over her mouth. Just dance, it'll be easier to make our way out of here. He was clearly nervous with the crowd, and being so close to Star, but he didn't say a word, and followed her lead. They awkwardly moved around on the dance floor, making their way to the exit at the same time. Izuku moved stiffly, and almost robotically. Deku, relax man, you're way too stiff right now. He stammered a little, and leaned in a little, speaking in a whisper. Ivy never danced before, though. She opened her mouth, and then closed it. Oh yeah. Well, she'd have to fix that later. Well, just do what I do then. She began to make the moves a little more complex, with a few spins and twirls, and Izuku followed along best he could. He was still stiff, and they still stumbled a little, but they were so close to the exit, they could almost taste it. Then suddenly, the light went away, and the regular lights came on. They paused mid-dance, and a few people clapped, and another handful cooed at them. They were so awkward and cute. I bet they'll have like, 1,000 babies. Izuku froze, and steam began to blow out his ears. He was clearly malfunctioning, and Star knew she needed to get out of there, and quick. Star. DMN it. She turned around, and saw a red-faced Tom, although it was clearly for a different reason than Izuku. That dance was meant for me. He looked at her, and she could tell he was trying to maintain his boiling fury. She frowned. Sorry. Actually, I was going to show Deku where the punch was, and then the light appeared so I couldn't just not dance. Tom growled, and then looked towards the red Deku, who was still frozen. Him then That kid that won at the sports festival. Well, I didn't actually fight back then, so maybe it's time for a rematch. He took a step forwards, and Star stopped him. Tom. Don't. He didn't mean anything by it, and he was just here to make sure I was okay. He pushed her away, and she pulled out her wand. Tom, I'm warning you, get away from him. He continued forward, and Star aimed for him with her wand, and fired a spell. As soon as the ray of light hit, he spun around on her, and she could tell that he had finally snapped. In any other situation, she'd be impressed, it took way longer than normal. However, at the current moment, she didn't really have time to be impressed. He launched at her, and sent a few fireball her way, and she dodged them. Narwhal blast. The volley of fish was sent towards the raging demon, and he quickly burnt them all to a crisp. She winced as the smell of charred fish wafted through the air, and she prepared to dodge another attack. Detroit. Smosh. Before she could, however, a green blur launched at Tom, and Izuku landed a solid hit across Tom's cheek. The angry look disappeared, and the demon flew halfway across the room, sliding to a standstill, and temporarily unconscious. Star grabbed Izuku as he shakily stood back up, legs clearly sore, and drg him away. Alrighty then, let's get out of here. They took the coach back to the surface, and both collapsed on Izuku's couch. That was a wild night. Glad you could come and spice things up a bit, Deku. The green-haired teen grinned nervously. Well, that was kinda intense for me. Star laughed. Says the guy that went to the point of passing out from exhaustion at the sports festival. Izuku blushed. Well, that was different. We were in the underworld, surrounded by demons. You interact with Mr. Explosion Boy almost daily. She's got you there, you know. Izuku turned to see Nana come in, and sit on the coffee table again. Deku? Who's that? Nana paused. Wait, you can see me? Star paused, visibly confused. You're right there. Am I not supposed to be able to? Nana looked at Izuku, and then back at Star. No. No, you are not. Izuku, Nana, and Star all stared at the dumbfounded tiny form of one Toshinori Yagi. Nana? The black-haired Force Ghost nodded her head. Yes, Toshi, Nana. It was the fourth time that All Might had asked that. He was quiet for a second, before opening his mouth again. All Might. Izuku cut the man off before they were stuck in his office for the next 30 minutes, while he cycled through asking Nana if it was really her over and over. The man immediately shook out of his daze, and his eyes glistened. Oh goodness, Nana, it's you. He went to give her a hug, but he went right through her. She pat his back, and smiled. Yeah, kid, it's me. He smiled. You look just like you did back then. You've not aged a day. She chuckled. Well, I'm dead so. She was quiet a moment before spreading her arms. Look at you though. You're even older than I was, that's crazy. He chuckled. Well, yes, I suppose you're correct. He then turned to Izuku. Young Midoriya, how long has my mentor been appearing to you? He scratched his neck. Since last night. She just kinda showed up. The black-haired hero. Yeah, we're all really confused here. But that's not all. All Might rose his brow. Oh, what else then? Star raised her hand. I can see her, and I'm not supposed to be able to. The blonde-haired man looked at the interdimensional princess. Yes, that does seem to be a predicament. They were quiet for a second, before Izuku spoke up. We were wondering if you might have any idea on the cause. All Might tapped his chin, before snapping. Maybe it's because you're really good friends. The three looked at him. He held his hands up. It was a joke. He then turned to his green-haired protégé. I'm very sorry, young Midoriya, but I don't know anything more than you three. One for All is very mysterious in its ways. In fact, I'm sure that Nana has explained how they could only appear to me in dreams. Izuku nodded. Yeah, she mentioned it. That One for All is different for me, and I get like Force Ghosts or something. All Might let out a laugh. Oh, Star Wars. I get it. They shared a chuckle while everyone else looked on in confusion. Looks like they were both nerds. The number one hero looked to Izuku. I suppose that this is something you'll have to get used to, young Midoriya. Try not to be too talkative in public, people may think you're crazy. Nana let out a sharp laugh. Oh, I'm definitely going to be messing with you in public now. Izuku groaned. He already got enough teasing from Star, who was also laughing alongside Nana. He shot All Might a look, who simply responded with his own apologetic look. Izuku sighed. Well, this can be good though. Having two previous Wilders of One for All as my mentors could be super helpful with my progression of the quirk. All Might clapped. Yes, that's a good way to look at it, young Midoriya. Now, if you'll all excuse me, I've got a ridiculous amount of paperwork to do, for very little pay. The three were silent. All Might clapped again. Get out. The three stood up, and left, bidding the number one hero a polite goodbye, and exiting the room. They walked down the hall, Nana with her arms behind her head. You know, I've never just hung out with high school kids before. Izuku looked at her. Are you like stuck with me like this? Can you not go back into the mindscape? The heroine shrugged. Why bother, I'd rather just stay on this plane of existence, there's way more stuff to do, rather than just hang out with those stuffy guys in the mindscape. Izuku shrugged. Well, I guess that's fair. There was a brief moment of silence, before Star and Izuku's phones went off simultaneously. Star looked at hers. It's my mom. Says she needs to call me. Izuku stared down at the number that he knew to belong to Toffee. We need to talk, kid. He gulped and looked up nervously. Ah, I guess mine was just a wrong number. Star stared at him, and saw that he was kind of nervous. She shrugged. Well, I'm gonna step outside for a minute and talk to Mom then. She stepped out the door leading outside, and immediately dialed her mother. As soon as she was on the phone, Izuku shakily dialed Toffee. The phone rang for a moment, before the Septarian picked up on the other end. Ah, Izuku. You responded quickly, good. The boy looked around nervously. Ah yes. What is it? Toffee spoke. No doubt that soon Star will be alerted to my presence on Muni by her mother. I've been making sure I'm spotted in very specific locations. I know Moon will understand what I'm doing, or at least what I'm trying to make her think I'm doing. Now is the time to be putting those ideas into Star's head. I'm counting on your help, Izukumidoriya. The teen gulped. Yes, of course. He continued. And Izuku, do keep this a secret. It's imperative that no one knows we're connected. That would put not only me in jeopardy, but you as well. I am technically a criminal as far as Muni is concerned. Izuku nodded. I won't. And I'll do everything I can with Star. I think if she knows the truth, she'll be more receiving of the idea. The lizard man grinned from the other side of the phone. Very good, I trust you will do great things for many people, Izukumidoriya. The phone clicked off, and Izuku sighed, before steeling himself. He's a real shady character kid. Izuku jumped, before remembering that Nana was standing right there. He needs my help, and I can't just stand by and not help someone. She rose an eyebrow. If you say so, kid. Be careful though. The crafty types are always the most dangerous. It's like all for one. Izuku gave her a strange look. Who? She stared at him like he was stupid, before pinching the bridge of her nose. Seriously, Toshi? You haven't told the kid about the big bad? Izuku was confused, but before Nana could explain, Star bust through the door. Toffee's back. The green-haired teen's heart nearly stopped. So Toffee was right, Queen Moon was onto him. My mom told me there's been some sightings of him in some key locations, and that he has something planned, so she's going to hunt him down. She was calling me to tell me, and also to tell me that my weekly reports would be on hold for a little while. Why are you sweating? Her tangent was cut off by the sudden question, and Izuku waved his hands dismissively. Ah, no reason at all. Just, getting kind of hot in here. Star got really close, looking him directly in the eye, before pulling away and grinning. Well, it's pretty nice outside, so let's get you some fresh air. She hoisted the boy over her shoulder, and he let out a yelp, before kicking the door down and venturing outside. Nana stared at the broken door. I wonder if Izuku will have to pay for that. Star grinned as she carried Izuku. She didn't know what had him so nervous, maybe the return of Toffee. She still didn't know exactly what he wanted with her best friend. She did know, however, that she wouldn't let him put his slimy claws on him. She paused. Izuku, were Toffee's claws slimy? The boy froze up, and gave her an incredulous look. Ibuwh no. She nodded. She wouldn't let his dry to moderately sweaty claws on her best friend. Izuku stared at the blonde dumbfounded. Then, he had an idea. Ah, Star, you know, a thought just randomly crossed my mind. She looked up to him, still carrying him. He nodded. Yeah, I was thinking about Independence Day, and how it was kinda unfair for the monsters. He tried to word it delicately, but Star gave him a strange look. "They're savage beasts that wanted to eat our children. We fought them off with everything we had because we couldn't have them doing that." He internally winced. "Yeah, but, it seemed more to me like they were minding their own business, and that your ancestors kinda just came in and started mass genocide." He cursed himself. Way to go, putting it delicately. Star set him down, and gave him a confused look. "Izuku, what's bringing this on?" He almost blanched. She almost never called him by his first name like that, unless she was worried. He shuffled nervously, before gaining a determined look. "I dunno, Star, I guess I wanna be everyone's hero. I don't think all monsters are bad like that at all. Have you ever actually talked to a monster?" She frowned. "Well, not really, but dash." He cut her off, and immediately felt bad, but continued. "What about Tom? Isn't he like a literal demon?" She frowned. "Tom may have had issues, but he was pretty harmless otherwise." "I dunno, Izuku." The green-haired teen shrugged. It was just a thought. He hated lying to his friend, but he believed in Toffee, and he may be wrong for it, but he trusts him too. If this was for the greater good, then he'd do it. He may confess later, but right now, he needed to try to at least plant the seed into Star's mind. She frowned, and the two walked home in silence. Once they reached their home, Star went up to her room to get a shower. Izuku sighed, and Nana spoke from behind him. "Kid, I sure do hope you know what you're doing." He looked to the heroine. "I have this feeling. Like I know he's telling the truth. I can't let someone be targeted for being weak, and for nothing else." The woman's face softened, knowing he had a soft spot for people that fell victim to that, having been one himself. She sighed. "Sit down, kid, and let me tell you the story of One for All." "So," Izuku started. "That is who killed you then? All for One?" She nodded. "Yes, and he's the reason we have One for All. It is specifically dedicated to the defeating of All for One. Like two sides of the same coin." The green-haired teen leaned back on the couch. "This gives even more pressure than I already had." Nana frowned. "Yeah, IQ dash." Izuku cut her off by hopping to his feet, and clenching his fist. "Only more reason to get a good grasp on my quirk. I have to be able to save everyone that I possibly can. I can't be a good successor without it." Nana was seemingly caught aback at first, but quickly smiled. Of course the kid would take it as something pushing to his goal. She had spent the last few weeks inside his head. "I tell you that, to tell you this, kid. Be careful. Don't let yourself be fooled. For not only your sake, but the world's. One for All is incredibly powerful, and incredibly dangerous in the wrong hands." Izuku nodded. "I understand." The seventh user put her hand on his shoulder. "You got a good head on your shoulders, kid. And a great big heart to boot. I know that you'll do great one day." The green-haired inheritor grinned. "Well, I'm glad you think so." The former pro-heroine smiled. "Kid, I know so." Star entered her room, and immediately sighed. What Izuku had said still weighed on her mind, but she wasn't sure why. Monsters are bad, right? It's all she knew, and how she was raised. She looked back, and thought of all the monster attacks and monsters she herself had fought. However, something was different. For some reason, she couldn't recall a single time a monster had attacked her first. Or for that matter, any time monsters in general attacked first. She walked to the bathroom that was a part of her room, and began preparing her shower, thinking that may get her mind off of it. About halfway through her shower, she realized it didn't help at all. "What was I thinking?" she mumbled to herself. The deepest of questions and thoughts always come in the shower. She finished up quickly, and laid down on her bed, staring up at the top of her bed canopy, blowing some wet hair out of her face. "Man, Deku having to go and hit me with those kinds of questions." She was quiet for a minute, before sitting up. Maybe he does have a point though. Before she could ponder the thought further, her mirror began ringing. Hopping off her bed, and pulling back the curtains, the mirror showed that her mother was calling. Confused, as she said that she wouldn't be available for the next week or two, she answered. Mom. Izuku yawned, and stretched, before freezing. It was a school day. His alarm hadn't gone off. In a panic, he reached over to his phone, and saw that it was 2 minutes before his alarm was set. Immediately relaxing, he arose, and began to get ready for school, turning his alarm off when it did finally go off. He grabbed his things, and headed to the kitchen, seeing Star sitting at the table with a cup of coffee, strangely silent. When she looked up, she grinned. "Oh, morning Deku." He smiled at her. "You're up kind of early. What's the occasion?" She smiled. "Oh, nothing, I just woke up earlier today than normal." She didn't tell him that she had trouble sleeping the night before, both because of his question, and because of her mother calling. He shrugged, and grabbed a piece of toast that was sitting on a plate on the counter, and began to munch on it. "So," he began, "you ready for school?" Star chuckled into her coffee. "Well, no." She stood up, and finished the cup off, grinning at her friend. "But I guess I don't have a choice in the matter." Izuku smiled. "That's the spirit, let's go." The walk to UA was largely uneventful, just some small talk between the two friends, which continued when they met up with Ida, Mina, and Achiko at the train station near UA's campus. Once in their homeroom, Aizawa rose to life from the floor near his desk. "So, as you all may or may not know, we just had the sports festival." He clicked a button on the remote he held in his hand, and a screen fell down at the front of the class, showing each student, and a number beside them. However, as you all may or may not know also, is that pro heroes were in attendance, and were watching you, each one putting in applications to have you intern under them, for our next big program. Our internship program. Each of you will be doing some research, and choosing a hero to intern under, for the next week or so. So, get to it. He then immediately went back down, and the students began intermingling amongst themselves. Izuku turned to Star. "Star, look, you got some people that want you to intern with them." She smiled. "Yeah, well, so do you. Besides, I can't actually participate in this activity." Izuku rose his brow. "Why not?" She tapped her desk. My mom called last night. I've got to go to Muni for the next week. Something to do with my training and stuff. I guess she talked to someone here, and cleared it. Perfect timing, with this going on." The green-haired teen was a little disappointed, but nodded. "Well, I guess that's basically like an internship, so you'll get something anyway." The interdimensional princess grinned, and nodded. "Totally. By the way, who do you plan on interning with?" She had a pretty good knowledge of pro heroes, thanks to living with Izuku for the past almost year, so she really was curious. The green-haired teen tapped his chin. I'm not sure yet. There's a few places that would be really cool to intern at, but first, I think I'm gonna talk to All Might about it." She nodded. "Yeah, I figured he might. Who knows, he may have something planned for you to do instead." Izuku grinned. "He may. What do you mean you're busy?" Gran Torino sighed, and pinched the bridge of his nose. "I said, I've got plans. Besides, Toshinori, I'm a retired hero, I don't even work for an agency anymore. Why don't you talk to Mirai?" All Might visibly paled. Mirai. WL. The older man on the other end of the phone groaned. "Don't tell me you're still not talking to him. Kid, you're literally the #1 hero. Call him, see if he'll take your problem child as an intern." "I can't." The phone clicked off, and the blond man visibly sunk into his chair. "I haven't talked to Mirai in a few years, who knows what he'll have to say." He looked at the phone that was sitting on his desk. You're literally the #1 hero. All Might sighed, and picked up the phone. Izuku and Star walked side by side down the large hallways that UA High boasted, Izuku going through his list of possible internships. I thought about Kamui Woods, but I'm not sure. He's super cool and powerful, but... Star nodded. Well, what about the Wild Wild Pussycats? I see that they gave their recommendation. He tapped his chin. Maybe. I'll have to compile a list of pros and cons, and then decide based on that. I'll get on that as soon as we get done talking to All Might. The interdimensional princess cocked her head, giving Izuku a curious look. I wonder what he wants anyway. Izuku shrugged. I suppose we'll see when we get in the room. Ah. Speaking of, we're here. They stopped in front of the door labeled Teacher's Lounge, and before Izuku could knock, the door swung open, the familiar face of All Might peering at him from the other side of the doorway. He gave a wide grin. Ah, Izuku my boy. What a pleasant surprise, please come on in. Izuku and Star both gave him a strange look, as he had asked them to come, and it shouldn't have been a surprise at all. However, they entered anyway. When they came through the door, Izuku noticed Nana had appeared, and was sifting through the various memorabilia that All Might had set in the corner of the room. The green-haired teen could feel the pride that the previous holder had for her student and successor. He then turned to All Might, in order to ask why he summoned him here. So, All Might. Why did you summon me here? The #1 hero wrung his hands nervously, but smiled anyway. Well, I actually just got off the phone with an old colleague of mine, about doing your internship. Izuku perked up at the mention, as did Star in curiosity. Nana also turned around some, paying more attention to the conversation. And? Who is it? What did they say? All Might chuckled. Well, you probably know my old sidekick, Sir Night Eye. Right. Izuku's eyes immediately widened. Don't tell me. The blonde-haired hero nodded. Yes, I called him so that you could do your internship there. However. Izuku's budding excitement held itself in when All Might said this. However. The man nodded. He's hesitant to take you on, mainly about some differences in opinion regarding One for All. However, him considering it is a plus, and he said that he'd call me back when he dash. Before All Might could finish his sentence, his phone began ringing. Izuku and Star both snickered when they heard the basic All Might ringtone that was playing, and All Might blushed before answering. Hello. Oh, yes, and? An interview, huh? You'll be sending one of your own interns to bring him to you? Very well then. Yes, I am doing fine, thank you for asking. And it's been good to speak to you Aegean too, Mirai. When the phone call ended, Toshinori seemingly relaxed. Well, at least I know he's not mad at me or anything. That's definitely a weight off of my shoulders. Izuku tilted his head. Was that Sir Night Eye? All Might nodded. Yes, and he said he's giving you a chance. However, in a move that's more akin to the work-study program, you'll be interviewed in order to intern under him. The green-haired teen was visibly excited, and he grinned. Awesome. I won't disappoint you All Might. I'll do my best. Said Hero chuckled. I know you will my boy. He then turned to Star. And I heard you're going back to Muni, and training with your mother. She nodded. Yeah, there's some stuff going on back home, and Mom wants to keep a close eye on me. All Might nodded. Then I suppose it will be the first time in close to a year that you two have been separate. The two were quiet for a moment, before turning at each other. Star was the first to respond. Yeah, I guess so. There was a short silence, before All Might spoke up. Well then, I'm sure you'll be fine. Perhaps you'll both even learn something new, and come back together an even stronger team than you were already. They stared at each other for another couple of seconds, before they both grinned, and nodded. Yeah. There was a knock on the door, and All Might immediately buffed up. Hello? All Might? All Might's student that he specifically wanted to intern under Sir Night-Eye for whatever reason. All Might rose, and answered the door. Ah! Young Togata, what a pleasant surprise. Izuku Brayfly wondered if he knew that this guy was coming as well. The green-haired teen got a closer look at the newest addition to the room. Standing much taller than he himself did, which albeit, wasn't hard, the young man could easily be mistaken for All Might's kid. Todoroki would have a field day. His hair was slicked up into a point on top, and he had a simple look on his face, accompanied by a smile. Izuku didn't recognize him, so he hadn't seen him around really. Ah! I know you. You're that crazy first year that I've heard about. The one with the super strong quirk that also hurts you really bad. Man, I watched a rerun of your fight at the sports festival, and I gotta say, you got guts, kid. I'm Hiro Togata, I'm a third year here at UA. For some reason, Izuku was caught off guard by the fact that there were students ahead of his class. It was a high school after all. He weakly offered his hand out. Izukumidoriya, first year. He grabbed his hand in a tight grip, and gave a firm shake. Well, it's very good to meet you. I was sent by Sir Night-Eye to bring you to the agency ASAP, so that we can get started right away. Oh, and your friend can come too. The more the merrier. Nana was chuckling in the corner at the boy's brazen optimism, and Toshinori was beginning to put together why Mirai had preferred young Togata to be the ninth inheritor. He sighed, and watched them leave, before deflating. Nana walked over to him, and put a ghostly hand on his shoulder. Well, what do you think? Toshinori sighed. I just hope Mirai gives young Midoriya a chance. The black-haired heroine just nodded. Well, I may not know the guy, but if he sees what you and me see in the kid, I'm sure there won't be a problem at all. Toshinori nodded. You're right. She grinned. I usually am. With those words, she disappeared, likely to follow along with Izuku and Star. Toshinori sat back on his couch, and leaned into the soft leather. I know you are. Izuku was growing to like Togata more and more by the second. The guy had a very natural charisma, and was just super nice and honest. Star was all about it, and while they talked, Izuku could almost see Mirio being like Star's long-lost older brother. Both super energetic, with Star taking all the chaos, and Mirio being more level-headed. Izuku finally chimed into the conversation. So, Togata. What is Sir Night-Eye like? The boy thought for a moment, tapping his chin, before his smile returned. Well, Sir may seem super deadpan and even kind of scary, but he's actually a huge sucker for jokes. Seriously, the man's whole body is a funny bone. I guess that's why he likes me so much. So piece of advice, if you can make him laugh, you'll have the interview bagged. Izuku blanched at that. Make him laugh? But Izuku wasn't a super funny guy. His humor was dry and situational at best. The only thing that he could really think of that would be funny was. No, Deku. No, do not do the All Might impression. It's scary, it isn't funny. The green-haired teen frowned. I've been working super hard to improve it though. The interdimensional princess shuddered. That's the thing though. It's scary because it's way too accurate. Like, how do you mimic his face and everything? Mirio chuckled. Well, if you're not super funny, I hope you've got something under those sleeves. Sir is pretty HRD on us to be light and funny, even out in the field. Izuku shuddered. He really hoped he could pull this off. It wasn't too terribly long later when they reached the Night-Eye agency. Most of the way was idle chit-chat, with the occasional query into Sir Night-Eye, and what it was like working for him. Mirio seemed to really like it, and Izuku could only hope that he would also accept him. When they walked into the agency, the woman at the desk immediately recognized Mirio. Ah, hey. Here to see Sir. He's upstairs in his office. Here, I'll make sure he knows you're coming. The blonde upperclassman simply nodded, and flashed the desk clerk a smile, before the three of them made their way up to Sir Nightie's office. When they arrived, it was empty, save for the tall, lanky man that typed away at his computer. Izuku immediately recognized the man as Sir Nightie, and Mirio yelled out to him. "Yo! Sir! That first year you wanted me to go get is here." The man paused his typing, before turning around. Star was surprised by his sharp demeanor. When Mirio had described him, she wasn't expecting him to be this intimidating. He stood up from his chair, showing off how incredibly tall he really was, and made his way over to the trio. "So, you're the izukumidoriya that All Might asked me to babysit for the next week?" The green-haired boy shrunk a little. "Babysit?" The man's expression didn't change. "Relax, it was a joke." Izuku was already confused, and he hadn't even been here for 5 minutes. The man sat down at his desk, and motioned for Izuku to sit in front of him. He then looked towards Mirio. "Mirio. Please, will you and the young girl step out while I conduct my interview?" The boy nodded, and Star walked out, a slight look of concern on her face as she turned to Izuku and walked out the door. Said teen gulped slightly, and Night-Eye seemingly cut straight to the chase. "I'll make myself clear. I don't think that you deserve one for all." Izuku's heart clutched at the statement. It was so blunt, that he couldn't help it. Night-Eye continued. "I actually hand-picked Togata myself to act as All Might's successor. He's smart, charismatic, strong, and very importantly, he's able to lighten a situation up, something I believe to be one of, if not the most important trait of All Might." Izuku still didn't say anything, opting to instead let Sir Night-Eye make his point. "So, first and foremost, I want you to make me laugh." Izuku was silent. So Mirio was right. Night-Eye rose an eyebrow. "Well, come then, I haven't got all day. Anything will do, just try to make me laugh." The green-haired teen thought for a moment, before going with the first thing that came to his mind. "What do you call a cow? With no legs?" Night-Eye narrowed his eyes. "What?" Izuku gulped. "Dead, probably." Night-Eye's eyebrows rose in surprise, before he went back to his monotone expression. "I've got to say, that was unexpected. However, it failed to make me laugh. Therefore, I won't be taking you as my intern. Have a good day." Izuku was in shock. That was the best he could come up with, and it barely even elicited a response. And just like that, he was turned away, without even so much as a chance to prove himself. He was defeated, just like that. "Come on kid, don't give up that easily." He turned his head, and saw Nana Shimura standing beside him. "What does this guy know? So what, you're not funny? What does that even matter? The izukumidoriya I know doesn't need to be funny." He straightened himself up in his chair. "You're right," he whispered to himself. Night-Eye turned to him. "You're still here. I have very important work to do, and I won't be taking you as an intern, so you can go." Izuku stood up from his chair, a new fire blazing in his eyes. "No." Night-Eye rose one of his eyebrows, turning away from his computer completely. "Excuse me?" Izuku peered at the man. "I said no. I'm not going to let you dismiss me that easily. I earned one for all. All Might chose me, and I've been working my hardest every day since in order to live up to what's been placed on me. In order to become a better hero. Better than even All Might. So I won't sit here and let you tell me that I don't deserve it, just because you don't think I'm funny." Night-Eye stood up, and Izuku almost lost his fire towards the intimidating man, but he stood strong. "Is that so?" The ninth inheritor stayed silent, his gaze unwavering. Night-Eye sighed. "Very well then, I'll give you one chance. You must take this stamp out of my hand, before 5 minutes pass. To make it easier, I won't do anything except dodge. If you can get the stamp, and stamp the paper signaling that you are doing your internship here, then I'll take you. If not, I will still refuse to accept you, and you won't be interning here. Izuku nodded. Okay. Star and Mirio had momentarily went nearby to a vending machine, and got a couple of juice boxes. Star yawned. Man, it's been a pretty long day. I can't wait to go home and sleep. Mirio chuckled. Sir would really like you. Say, wanna see if you can do your internship here? Star shook her head. While I would absolutely love to, I have to go home and help my mom, so I won't be participating in the internships. The blonde upperclassman smiled, and shrugged. That's too bad then. I bet you and Midoriya make a great team. Star nodded. Yeah, we're pretty cool. She zoned out for a second, thinking about how the green-haired boy was doing, and Mirio watched her intently, grinning the whole time. Oh yeah, she totally has it bad for him. However, before they could say anything, there was some loud banging that was coming from inside Sir Nightie's office. Star was about to investigate, but Mirio held his hand out in front of her. Hold on there, kiddo. Sir hates to be interrupted. And whatever it is, I'm sure it's fine. A couple minutes later, Izuku exited the room, disheveled, but looking determined. I got the internship. Star cheered and gave the boy a hug. Mirio saw Sir Nightie, and walked into his office. Did he make you laugh? Nightie shook his head. While I expected worse, he's not the funny type. He then looked at all the footprints lining the walls, and the untouched all-might memorabilia, including the very rare poster that he had sitting above his desk. However, he's determined, and it shows. Maybe, just maybe, he'll surprise me enough. Mirio gave the hero a strained look. Enough for what, sir? He was only met with silence, causing him to frown, but ultimately shrug it off. He went back outside, and saw Izuku and Star talking. So tomorrow morning, I'll be on my way here to start my internship. I can't wait. He's kinda scary, but to work with Sir Nightie. It'll almost be like working directly with All Might. Star chuckled at his antics. Yep, and I'll head to Muni tomorrow morning. Izuku nodded, but then he frowned. Star, be careful. Surprised by the sudden shift, the princess smiled, and nodded. Don't worry. I'll be fine. I'm awesome, remember? The greenette chuckled. Yeah, I just can't go around losing my best friend or anything like that. Star blushed. Yeah, me neither. The two were silent for a moment, before Mirio decided to make himself known. Man, I'm kinda hungry. Why don't the three of us go on ahead and check out the food they have downstairs to celebrate? It's usually pretty good. The two turned to the other boy in surprise, before both agreeing to lunch. Mirio grinned. He bet $100 that they end up together before then end of the month. Izuku nervously held onto the suitcase that held his hero costume, giving his mother a hug as he left their small apartment. Star stood behind them, and gave the Midoriya matriarch a hug as well, before cutting open a large portal to Muni. She turned to Izuku, and grinned. I'll see you at the end of the week, Deku. Don't have too much fun without me. The greenette chuckled and nodded. Don't worry, how could I? You're taking all the fun with you. She paused for a moment. Was that a Captain America reference? He simply shrugged, leaving the interdimensional princess to roll her eyes, and smile. See ya, Deku. She hopped through the portal, leaving Izuku and his mother alone in the apartment. Inko turned to her son. Okay, Izuku, please be safe. I don't know if my heart could take it if you were to get hurt again. He gave the woman a good-natured smile. Don't worry, Mom, I'll be with Sir Nightie and a whole lot of other super-capable heroes. I'm sure I'll be fine. She nodded her head, still clearly nervous. Well, still. I love you, Izuku. He smiled, and hugged her again, making his way out the door. I love you too, Mom. I'll text you when I get at the agency. She nodded, and Izuku made his way out of his apartment, and towards the train station. As he walked, the teen thought about Sir Night-Eye, and what he had said. Even if the hero didn't believe Izuku had what it took, he'd show him. He remembered when All Might had told him on the beach, that he had truly and completely earned his quirk. He had to prove Night-Eye wrong and prove that he was truly deserving of the title of Ninth Bearer. His thoughts were interrupted when someone roughly pushed past him. Out of my way, shitty Deku. You walk 2dmn slow. Katsuki Bakugou briskly walked past his fellow hero in training, and the greenette briefly panicked. Oh, sorry Kachan. Have a good internship. The blonde turned around with a deathly glare on his face. Don't speak to me, Deku. You don't have that damned fish blonde here to defend you, so back off before I punt you into next week. He spun around on one foot and stormed off, leaving Izuku to sigh in defeat, shaking his head at Bakugou's antics. Suddenly, a voice spoke up from behind him. Hey, Deku. Izuku turned around, and saw one Ochiko Uraraka waving at him animatedly, as well as one Tenya Ida, who was approaching him more subdued. Izuku grinned and returned the wave. Hey guys. What's up? They caught up to him, and Uraraka gave him a smile. Well, we're both headed to the train. We've got internships too, you know. The greenette chuckled. Oh, yeah. What are you doing so close to here, though? Don't you both usually ride a different train? Ida chopped his hand forward. I had to run a few important errands before I left. It is imperative that I am prepared for my internship with Manuel in Hosu. Izuku nodded. So, you decided on Manuel, Ida? He works closely with your brother, doesn't he? The engine teen nodded. Yes, they're good friends. And since my brother is currently out of commission, I figured it made sense for me to intern with him. The other two teens nodded, having heard about the older Ingenium's encounter with the hero killer Stain. Izuku also noticed that when Ida mentioned it, his jaw tightened, and he clenched his fist a bit. Deciding not to say anything, he turned to Uraraka, who sported a slight blush. I was running some errands too. I actually ran into Ida on my way over to the train, so we decided to walk together. I knew it was close to where you live, Deku, so I figured that we'd run into you eventually. Izuku chuckled at this. Yeah, my apartment isn't far from here. I actually live in the same complex as Kachan. The brunette blushed a little. Oh, I had no idea. You two were childhood friends or something, huh, Deku? He chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. Well, I guess you can say that. They were silent for a moment and noticed that they had arrived at the train station. Uraraka grinned and waved to the two boys, almost immediately boarding a train that was leaving. I have to take this one, or I'll be late. Plus ultra you guys. They both raised their hands, giving the teen girl a plus ultra in response. Once the door closed, Izuku turned to Ida. Hey, Ida. I know it must be hard with what's going on with your brother and all, but if you need to talk, I'm here. I'm sure Uraraka would also be willing to listen, we're both your friends. The teen nodded, but Izuku noticed that his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. I'll keep that in mind, Midoriya. He nodded, still feeling uneasy about the situation, and smiled as Tenya boarded his train, headed to Hosu. Soon after, Izuku also boarded his train, staring out the window as he thought about the upcoming internships, as well as Sir Night-Eye. Feeling nervous, kid? Izuku jumped a little, and turned to see Nana Shimura, sitting comfortably beside him on the train. She gave him a sideways grin. You nervous about this whole internship thing? Izuku wrung his hands together a bit and grinned sheepishly. A bit. I'm glad that he decided to accept me after all. It would have been super embarrassing to go to All Might and tell him that he wouldn't accept my internship. Nana nodded. Yes, I do suppose that would be embarrassing. Then again, you did stand up to him pretty good in there as well. The greenette's face lit up into a glowing red. Yeah. I can't believe I said that to Sir Night Eye. He's like, almost as cool as All Might. Man, he's totally a saint for letting me do this. Nana barked out a laugh, and slapped Izuku on the shoulder, which he could strangely feel. Ah, quit worrying so much, kid. Night Eye is lucky to have an intern like you. I'm sure he'll love you. The hero in training blushed again. Well, I did mean what I said, so I'm gonna do my best to prove myself. The black-haired ghost giggled. Hey kid, you may want to keep it down a bit. People are starting to stare at you. Izuku shut his mouth, and looked around the train a bit, noticing that a few people were, in fact, giving him long sideways glances, as well as other strange looks. He blushed heavily, lowering his voice considerably. Well, I'm just saying. The seventh holder laughed good-naturedly. Don't worry, kid. I'm sure that Night Eye will realize that you're the perfect ninth by the end of the week. Izuku chuckled. Well, we'll definitely see later then. Nana chuckled, before disappearing, leaving Izuku to ride the rest of the way in relative silence. He watched as buildings passed him by, and before long, the train had come to a complete stop. When he milled off with the rest of the passengers, an arm suddenly wrapped around him. Hey there, Midoriya. Ready for your first day? He looked up, and saw one Mirio Togata, grinning ear to ear. He gave a small smile. I'm as ready as I'll ever be, Togata. He grinned. Great, because we have a full day ahead. Come on, let's get to the agency. The older teen sprinted off, surprising Izuku. Hey. Wait up. He apologized to the people he was bumping into and chased after his upperclassmen. He got the feeling that it was going to be a long week. As soon as Star stepped through the portal, she noticed that her mother was strangely absent from the throne room. Most times when she visited home, her mother would wait for her to arrive here, so it was strange that she was absent. She pulled her mirror phone out for a second to check the time. Well, I'm not late. The entire castle was relatively quiet, so Star, not being one to wait in one spot, decided to search for her mother. She peeked her head into her parents' room, taking note that it was completely devoid of life, save for whatever was going on in her father's side of the room. Shuddering at the image, she closed the door, and heard voices coming from the nearby study. Double search efforts. If he's seen anywhere, report to me immediately. Do not engage, he's far dangerous of an opponent to face without magic. Star slid the door open as quietly as she could, noticing that her mother stood over a large table, speaking to one of the higher-up knights. If the princess squinted, she could see that it was a map of Muni sprawled across the table, with several pins in it across the kingdom. She stepped in and caught the attention of her mother and the knight. The knight saluted her mother and left the room, leaving the princess and the queen alone. Her mother blinked. Hello, Star. I didn't realize that you had arrived. Aren't you a bit early? The blonde princess shook her head. No. I got here at 8 o'clock sharp, just like you asked. She blinked again, before looking at the clock on the wall. Oh, I suppose I lost track of time. Very well then. Follow me to the courtyard and we can begin. Star nodded, stepping aside to let her mother lead the way. So, what exactly do you have planned? Her mother turned around, giving her daughter a small smirk. Oh, you'll see. And I believe that you'll quite enjoy it. Those words only served to pique the princess's curiosity, so she followed her mother in silence, before they arrived in the castle courtyard, and her mother came to a stop. Okay, Star, today, we're going to have an important lesson in advanced magic. The princess cocked her head to the side. Should we get the spell book and glossaric? Her mother shook her head. No. I don't think that his purposefully vague lessons would be of any benefit right now. Therefore, I will be teaching you myself. The queen lowered herself onto the ground, sitting in the grass, motioning for Star to follow. So what's this super important advanced lesson you're teaching me? Moon took a deep breath, before her hands lit up with a soft blue aura. She opened her eyes and gave her daughter a strong gaze. Star, today I will be teaching you how to perform wandless magic. Star's eyes sparkled and she grinned widely. Oh my goodness, that means if I lose the wand, I'll still have magic. I'll be unstoppable. Queen Moon winced at her daughter's volume and motioned for her to calm down. Yes dear, that's correct. However, this is far from an easy process. You see, the wand doesn't actually generate magic, it simply acts as a conduit to the magic realm, and allows the user to pull from it, thus casting spells. To use wandless magic, you must turn your entire body into a conduit to the magic realm. Or, as Glossaric would say, dig deep. Star already seemed lost. What's this about a conduit and digging deep? What does that even mean? The queen frowned. Well, as for digging deep, it's just a vague way of saying that you have to make contact with the magical realm, with your body acting as the medium for channeling magic. The princess made an "oh" face. Oh. How do we do that? Queen Moon sat straight up, her legs crossed, and her hands folded in her lap. Well, for me, I had to meditate for hours a day, until I finally became in tune with the magic in the air surrounding us. After that, it was just a matter of bringing it into my body with our natural attraction to magic. Star groaned. That sounds super boring. The queen nodded. I had a feeling you'd say that. So, I came up with a bit of a different training regimen for you. Give me the wand. The blonde teen handed the wand to her mother, who simply stuck it in a pouch in her dress. Star rose an eyebrow. You have pockets in your dress? Moon nodded. I'm queen. I have these dresses specially tailored for me. I can have whatever I want in them. That, however, is besides the point. The queen's hands began to glow, and she lowered herself down into a fighting position. I will be attacking you with magic, and you're only allowed to dodge, or use magic to defend yourself. Try to picture the magic around you but stay focused on me. For every time you get hit, you must do an hour of meditation later. Star groaned a little at the idea, but she was still excited to spar with her mother, even if she wasn't able to attack without figuring out how to use wandless magic. She readied herself, and grinned. Alright, I'm red dash. Suddenly, a blast of magic flew towards her, and she narrowly ducked out of its way. She looked at her mother incredulously. Hey, I didn't finish my sentence. Her mother began to fire more attacks. Your enemies aren't going to wait until you're ready to fight back. You have to be ready for anything, Star. The girl nodded, closely examining the attacks coming her way. However, she knew that she couldn't keep up dodging all day long, although she was sure she could do it for a long time. She breathed deeply, and carefully watched her mother. Okay, Star. Think about all the magic around you. Like golden flakes of dust permeating through the sky. It was a strange analogy, something she had picked up from her time spent with Izuku, but she knew that it would help. Plus, any thoughts of the greenette were welcome to Star. A bolt of magic whistled right past her, and her mother grinned from where she was standing. Don't take your focus away from me, dear. Unless you'd like to meditate on this. Star frowned. She was beginning to get the feeling that it was going to be a long week. Mirio Togata, Izuku decided, was a force to be reckoned with. The older student showed exemplary control over his quirk, permeation, and wasn't giving Izuku an easy time in their spar. Come on, Midoriya. If you want to actually be able to go out on patrol this week, I want you to land at least one hit on me. The young hero in training grunted, trying to anticipate the movements of his upperclassmen. His joints and bones were aching, and he was slowly losing steam. He charged one for all into his arm, and swung forward, the wind whipping around the older teen. Mirio simply stood in it, grin on his face. That trick hasn't worked yet, it's not going to start now. The greenette groaned. Well, I don't want to actually hit you anyway. I might send you flying halfway through the building. The older teen smirked. Bold of you to assume you can hit me. Izuku frowned, and grunted, deciding to jump forward, feeling his feet seize up in the process. He winced, but followed through with his attack, but like before, he simply phased through the older teen. Mirio held his hands up, signaling a break in their training. Midoriya, look. You've got a super strong quirk, but you clearly don't have good control. Your moves are super slow and predictable. The greenette lowered his head. Yeah, I know. Honestly, I'm just glad that I can actually use it without destroying my body. He rubbed his hands, knowing there were several fractures in his fingers, and he could feel the pain in his feet. For the most part anyway. The older teen sighed and sat down beside him. I struggled for a really long time with control over my quirk. Heck, I still can't keep my regular clothes on when I permeate. But, I never gave up either. I know you don't have it in you to give up either, I can see it in your eyes when we spar. You've got a long way to go, but I'm sure you'll figure something out. For now, though, I want you to consider how you use your quirk. Sir always tells me that a predictable enemy is a beaten enemy. Mirio stood up and dusted himself off. We eat dinner at 6:30 sharp. That gives you about an hour and a half to train before it'd be time to clean up and prepare to eat. Healthy eating and rest are super important for a hero. And with those parting words, he left Izuku alone with his thoughts in the training room. The young teen stood up, wincing. He was going to be sore in the morning. Luckily, Sir Night-Eye had the foresight to invite someone with a healing quirk into the agency, since he knew the drawbacks One for All had on Izuku. Yet another reason he disapproved. Izuku sighed. He flexed his hand and felt the full power of One for All course through his muscles. The power stung, like his muscles were screaming for him to stop. It was like he was lifting something that was far too heavy for him to lift with one hand. He paused. Well, that's certainly an idea. Star laid on the ground in the courtyard, panting heavily. The queen fixed her hair, before walking over to her exhausted daughter. Well, that was certainly entertaining, don't you agree? Star grunted. Maybe for you. Maybe for me too. Yeah, it was pretty fun. Doesn't mean it didn't SCK though. The teenage princess sat herself up, giving her mother an inquisitive look. So Mom, you wanted me to come back to Muni because of Toffee, didn't you? If the question caught the queen off guard, she didn't show it. Rather, she simply nodded her head in agreement. Yes dear. If I know Toffee, he's planning something. And that monster isn't to be trifled with. I would know. The queen unconsciously rubbed her gloves. Star nodded. You said he was a dangerous criminal. What exactly did he do? I mean, I already don't like him because he kidnapped Izuku. Queen Moon frowned. When I was a little bit older than you are, Toffee and his Septarian army waged war on Muni. Star's eyes opened wide with surprise. War. The same one. Her mother nodded sadly. Yes, the same one that made me queen. Toffee himself killed both my mother and father, your grandparents. The young princess was quiet. She knew a little bit about the war, but not much. She paid slightly more attention to that part of history. She spoke quietly. Why? Moon sat down beside her daughter, before sighing sadly. Toffee hates humanity. With a burning passion. He wants monsters on top, and on top of them, he wants himself. I thought I'd scared him away for good all those years ago, but I should have known better. Men like him don't just give up. The young princess frowned. Are you preparing me to fight him? The queen wrinkled her nose. Oh goodness no. Toffee is far too dangerous. I'm just preparing for the worst-case scenario. Star thought for a moment, picturing a familiar set of green eyes. She set her jaw, and stood up, giving her mother a determined gaze. Mom, I want to help however I can. If that means fight, then I'm going to do it. Muni is my home, and I'm the princess. So come on, let's keep trying to figure this out. The queen was a bit taken aback by the sudden shift, but she simply smiled, and shook her head. Very well then, my dear. I suppose we've taken a long enough break. The girl grinned, and Moon was reminded of the boy she had been staying with on Earth. He was a good influence on Star. Izuku stood before Mirio, a determined look in his eyes. The older teen must have noticed the look, and seemed curious. So, did you figure anything out? Izuku grinned and set himself lower to the ground. I was up a little late, but I think I may have figured something out. Mirio grinned, and readied himself for combat, electing to remain silent. Before he could properly react, though, Izuku had already shot off the ground, seemingly with new purpose. Mirio weaved to the side, and the younger teen seemingly maneuvered himself mid-air, catching the upperclassman slightly off guard. He almost didn't permeate in time, no doubt looking surprised as Izuku's foot harmlessly passed through him. He sent a punch forward, but Izuku flicked, and shot down, out of the way of the attack. He landed on the wall, and springboarded forward. Mirio grinned. Now we're talking. They sparred for a solid 30 minutes straight. Izuku still couldn't quite get a hit in on the older boy, but he had come significantly closer than he had the day previous. Mirio caught his breath, looking to his underclassmen. So, how'd you end up figuring it out? The greenette blushed a bit. Well, I kinda just imagined using my whole body to pick something up, rather than trying it with just one arm. Distribute it throughout, you know. I think I can comfortably use around 8% of my power this way too. Without hurting myself at all. I'm really tired though. Mirio laughed good-naturedly. Well, that's to be expected. Distributing it across your whole body, huh? Kinda like a full-body cowl or something. It's almost the opposite of what I had to learn to do with permeate. Izuku nodded. Yeah, a full cowl. The older teen didn't seem to notice that the younger hero in training had held on to that part specifically and stood up. Well, even though you didn't hit me, I really didn't expect you to anyway. Which means, that first thing tomorrow morning, me and you are going on patrol. And we'll be doing it for the next 3 days, when your internship officially ends. Izuku looked surprised for a moment, before nodding, a determined smile on his face. Of course. I'll do my absolute best. Mirio nodded, before grinning. Now, how about another spar? The greenette grinned and nodded. Totally. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for more crossovers. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Nick Foolery on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.